Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day today and that everything is going great. I am out in the garden and I wanted to talk to you about pruning and taking care of your plants. It was a really hard lesson for me to learn to prune, and not like the act of pruning, but going out and cutting my plants back hurt my feelings. In the first year, my husband and I grew a big garden. He was like, you need to prune back all of these plants or else you're not going to get good healthy harvest. And I mean, we got a good harvest, I can't. But now as I continue to grow, it's important to cut back your plant. It's important to trim it and take care of it, and that's just one of the ways that you do it. So I just transplanted my lemon verbena into this giant pot that I can take inside in the wintertime because it is not hardy here where I live. It gets too cold. So but transplanting it put it into a little bit of a shock. So she's kind of mad at me, but that's okay. Just out here cleaning her up. She's got new leaves on her, so I know she'll be okay. That's one of the ways that you can tell, even though, like, so if you can see, like down here, we have some yellowing on the leaves. Like this one right here has some browning. Let's see. There we go. This one has some browning on it. So there's just a little bit of damage. So what it's important to do is to go through and to pinch off the leaves that are damaged, and that'll help. So you want to make sure that you either use a sharp pair of scissors or your hands are clean, and that you are not peeling the plant away. So I'm going to pause this so that I can go through this and clip this off, and then we're going to talk about pruning back your watermelons. So give me a second. So I'm still working on trimming this, but I was thinking, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, so I read this article about the history of voodoo dolls, and the modern history and the ancient history, and the difference between a puppet and a voodoo doll. And I'll share that information with you just really briefly. So voodoo dolls are only a couple hundred years old. They were not originally intended to hurt people. They're actually used as healing dolls, and it's used in sympathetic magic as puppets for healing. They weren't turned into like this evil stick pins in it kind of voodoo dolls until more recently in our history, as Hollywood has taken hold of them, and popular media and all of those things. So all of those ideas that voodoo dolls are this ancient ancestral practice of hurting other people, very much not true. And I get this from a reliable source. I'm not just making this up. I will look for the link. She's a pathos art blogger, the voodoo queen something, I don't know, she's great. I really enjoy her blogs, but she's got all of these great blogs on like myths to bust about voodoo dolls. But as I'm reading through these blogs and I'm thinking about it, and we talk a lot about how paganism is the practice of bringing back ancient practices, that we practice the ways of the ancestors. So yeah, you have ancestors from 200 years ago, 100 years ago, closer and whatever. But in reality, paganism was stopped being practiced 2,000 years ago. So you got to go pretty far back in order to have ancient pagan information. And I think that as you are going through your pagan practice and you're working on your pagan practice, history is something that's very important for you to learn, so that way you know how valid your information is. So just keep that in mind as you're saying that, oh my god, there's a painted lady. Let's see if we can get her. Oh, she flew away. She was just for me, sorry. She was very pretty. So as you are claiming to practice the ways of the ancestors and the ancient ways, make sure that what you're practicing is ancient. There's a lot of things that aren't. There's a lot of things that were created during the medieval time, and yeah, that's kind of ancestral and a long time ago, but when you really think about the scope of humanity and the amount of time that we've been on this earth, I mean, you think about finding remains in the United States which is one of the younger places, like, of people, if we think about it. And that's 10,000 BC. So 10,000 years before Christ, or I mean Common Era, before Christ, 10,000 years before Christ of history of paganism to be looked at and learned about and all of that stuff. So if what you're practicing is only a couple hundred years old, then is that really practicing the ways of your ancestors? It's just something to ponder. So, do a little history research. Include that in your practice. Now let's go look at watermelons, because this is important. I'm going to show you some examples. Okay. So, sorry. I'm going to put my shoes back on. I can't walk in the rocks without them. So I keep my vining plants. We have a dog. So all the way around the border is this wood thing, or rocks. But it's good for keeping your pumpkins and squash and stuff like that on, because they don't get rotted from the ground. It doesn't retain dirt. The rocks wash it away. Okay, so see my watermelon. Oh, it's so nice and pretty. As you can see, it's starting to get some flowers on here. Oh, now this is off of one plant. And if I pick up some of these shoots, you can see, I trace it all the way back down. Oh, excuse my camera, I need two hands. You trace it all the way back down. You can see right here, it's coming off of another vine. So it's this shooting off here. We got more than one runner, is what they're called. So each one of these runners takes away from the plant's ability to make fruit, or large fruit. So this plant, actually, because I have just continuously not cut it because it's on the corner here and I was letting it grow around. It was so pretty. It doesn't have any fruit on it yet. We come up here to the biggest watermelon I've ever gotten this early. See my watermelon? Oh, it's beautiful. So my watermelon, but as you can see, there's only one, that's actually two, but two things off of this plant, and I just keep trimming off so that this plant with the watermelon on it only has the one runner with the watermelon on it. So I do the same thing you can see over here with the squash. And I mean, just yesterday I cut a bunch of runners off of here, and already this squash right here, I don't know if you can see it, that squash right there is like doubled in size just because I cut off all that other stuff. So one, it puts the plant into like panic. Oh my God, I need to put all of the energy into producing this fruit so that I don't lose the ability to produce fruit, and make those seeds, because it's that power of reproduction driving it. So when you trim it back, now what it also does on your squash, the watermelon I don't have this problem with so much, it's more water tolerant. Squash, on the other hand, and pumpkin too, they don't like to be watered from the top. And since we water the grass around my garden, it gets watered from the top a lot. So we have a problem with powdery mildew. I came out here yesterday and I cut most of it off. Let's see if you're not familiar. Oh, look, there's one. So, oh, that giant grasshopper. So this leaf right here, okay, has these little white dots on it, and I'm gonna have to get a pair of scissors. So that's powdery mildew. It'll cover all your leaves. It doesn't necessarily kill the squash or the pumpkins. They're pretty tolerant of it, but it will get to the other plants. And since I do cross planting, so I've got peas and onions in the same bed, I don't want the mildew on them. It will kill my peas, and it's not good for eating. It's yucky. So that's another reason to prune back your pumpkins and your squash plants, is because wherever there is a lot and the water is staying on the leaves and they're getting a lot of leaf watering, you're going to get that powdery mildew. Let's see. So when you're cutting back your runners, you want to use a clean pair of scissors. Go out and clip them where they come off from the stem next to the leaf. Try to leave the leaf. But, I mean, so this corner had become very, very, very overgrown right here with these pumpkin. I got squash and pumpkin and pumpkin. I got planted very closely. I overplant. It's part of my planting method. But because of that, it did get a lot of powdery mildew, so I've had to pretty much completely cut back this plant right here all the way at the root. But it's doing fine. Like this squash has a squash right here, and it's happy as can be. It doesn't matter that I cut off all the leaves around where it's growing out of the ground. There was just an overabundance here, and it had taken over. And it's both these plants were like that, and I had to cut them back. And as you see, this one is already getting new leaves. They're happy. They like that. It helps them thrive and be happy. You have to think about it in nature. Animals would be coming over and eating them if this was the wild. The grasshoppers are eating them. Poor ornamental sage. Here's that blue sage that gets those pretty flowers. It's not like the eating kitchen sage. That's one of the ornamental ones. Baby grasshoppers. Pineapple sage, on the other hand. Look at how lush it is. It's so beautiful. I'm waiting for it to get flowers. I think I'm going to start collecting the leaves. They are just amazing. And they really do smell like a pineapple. It's amazing. I can't wait to burn some. Maybe today we'll do that. What is today? No, it's a dark moon. It's not a good day for collecting. Tomorrow, on the other hand. Maybe we'll do some collecting tomorrow morning. Anyways, so let's see. So don't forget to prune your plants. Don't feel like you're hurting them. It's just part of their cycle. We have the most beautiful butterflies chasing each other around my garden. They're eating all of the, pollinating on the flowers of my tomatoes. They're so pretty, these white butterflies. Anyways, I don't even know if you can see them. So, I hope everybody's doing well. Before you go, I'm going to show you my onion seeds. Hello, butterfly. Oh, look at the onion seeds. Oh, there's a grasshopper on me. I freaking hate the grasshoppers. They're killing my garden. Anyways, these look like they're almost ready. You see? But what's happened is they've all fallen over like this. I'm guessing that this is part of their process. So, anyways, I hope everybody has a fantastic Sunday. Get out and enjoy your garden. Do some pruning. Trim it back. Let it have some love. It's time to start collecting onions and potatoes too. We pulled a fresh onion the other day. It was fantastic. You know your onions are ready when they're falling over. And you don't have to water them that much this time of the year. If you're over watering onions that are that full, they will tend to start getting mushy and yucky and rotty, which doesn't mean a necessarily bad thing. All of these onions that you see in this bed are onions that I didn't collect last year because they had gotten smushy, so I left them, and then they started growing this year. So it worked out. Now I'm going to have onion seeds. We're going to try to make onions from seed. It'll be exciting. I learned that they're walking Egyptian onions and that if I left them, they would take over. But anyways, I hope everybody has a fantastic Sunday. Don't forget to like and subscribe and do some history research. You know what you're doing. We'll talk to you soon.